If you want to read something that feels dystopian even in 2026, you should pick up Tender is the Flesh by Augustina Bazterrica. This is a book set in a time somewhere in future where animals have been inflicted by a virus which makes them unconsumable. But man needs to eat meat, so as a mitigation, cannibalism is legalized. Now, humans called heads are bred for specialty meat and everything else that in general animals are used for. For example, game reserves, for experimentation in pharmaceuticals, cosmetic industry, leather, and everything else. The story is told from the perspective of Marcos, who is the main protagonist, and he used to work in an animal processing plant prior to this transition, and now continues to work in the same processing plant, with the exception of the fact that initially he used to deal with animals and now he deals with heads. There is a vivid description of how these heads are treated from the time that they are bred to the time that they are sent for slaughter in the processing plants and everything else in between. From the very beginning, we are made to believe that Marcos is the ethical and moral compass of this book because it is clearly explained how he absolutely hates his job. But the only reason that he's continuing to work there is because it pays well, he's good at it, and he needs to care of his father, who is in a sanitarium. Marcos is also suffering from personal grief because he lost his only son immediately after his birth. He's living separately from his wife. He doesn't get along well with his sister, and his father is in a sanitarium. He misses the normalcy of his past life. This chaotic world is further appended when he is gifted a first generation pure female by one of his friends. Now, that is a term you would use for purebred animals. A lot of stuff follows. I will not say what because that would give away spoilers. But his world becomes really all the more chaotic. But even in this chaos, he is given a rare opportunity to be more humane. At the outset, the book may seem like a call for veganism or a sharp criticism of factory farming, but it goes beyond that. The main theme that I could discern was that if people are desensitized enough and if a group is dehumanized enough, people in power with a good PR campaign and propaganda can literally get away with anything, especially in a capitalistic machinery. The end becomes really unraveling because it can mean two things, and that interpretation is left to the reader. One thing, there is a complete collapse of the ethical world that we think Marcos believes in. Now, one reason for that could be because maybe he was suffering from personal loss, and as a result, he just hated everything around him and this loss of normalcy. But as soon as his personal situation alleviated, he became normal like the rest of them. He was no longer disturbed by what was happening around him. The other perspective can be that maybe Marcos really was an ethical and moral person, but the problem is that he was the only one. He was the lone torch bearer of being humane in a society which had completely normalized treating certain humans only from the perspective of a product. The problem with that is that such a lone warrior or such a crusader can't really change the society around him until and unless their efforts are complemented by other people as well. And before long, he simply gave up and gave in. And that is what is more shattering. So, this book is way beyond topics related to just animals or the cruelty associated with them or the horrors of factory farming. This is also a sharp commentary on how gullible humans are and how easily they can be molded to become part of horrific crimes without truly understanding that they are complicit in a lot of the wrong that is happening across the world. And as I said, 2026 already feels like the world is crashing down upon us with most of the stuff that at least I read as dystopian very early on in my early years. Much of that stuff is already coming true. And you're left to wonder that how much more can the world really collapse morally, and how much more decay is possible without people actually speaking up. So, in that sense, it's a highly recommended book. But if you are triggered by scenes of violence and gore, you should probably think twice before picking it up, because when you read it, it doesn't just vanish. It stays with you for a while. In any case, if you do decide to pick it up, happy reading.